Hey there, this is Natalie, and in this video I want to talk about Mushoku Tensei's thirsty elf, Elinalise. But while I will be talking about her curse and things that happen in the main story of Mushoku Tensei that you may have heard about from other videos, or from reading the novels, what I mostly want to talk about is Elinalise's origin. So how she got the curse, what she was like before that, and the hidden purpose to Elinalise in the longer term story of this world, which we may well see come out in the sequel to Mushoku Tensei. I haven't seen anyone else covering this on YouTube, and it does relate to a side story called Old Dragon's Tale, so hopefully you'll find this interesting, but it does mean that this video will contain spoilers for all of Mushoku Tensei, including side content. And though I'll try to keep to only things I have to spoil to explain this stuff about Elinalise specifically, I will need to talk about some of the main conflicts in the series that haven't been introduced yet in the anime, so that's a very big spoiler warning. But before I get into that, just a quick reminder that it really helps me out if you hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. I make a lot of analysis type content about Mushoku Tensei and Re:Zero, as well as general anime content, and I really need the love. You can also support me on Patreon if you want to, and as always I'll be showing the names of all my current patrons at the end of this video. So with that YouTuber stuff over with, let's talk about Elinalise. I did go over Elinalise's curse and her recent past as a member of Paul's adventuring party in my video about theories as to why Elinalise hates Paul, so I won't repeat too much of that here, but as a summary, when we first see Elinalise, she is a former member of Paul's party who has teamed up with another former member, Talhand the dwarf, as well as with Roxy, after finding out that Paul's family is missing. They're looking for him and have made it to the Demon Continent. We see that Elinalise is a very naughty little elf, at least in the innocent Roxy's eyes, because her way of seeking information seems to be seducing men, as we saw in the anime, sometimes 5 at once. Now, Elinalise actually has to do that, because she has a curse on her that means if she doesn't regularly have sex with men, she will die. The way this works is that Elinalise's body produces a lot of magic, which would build up and become very dangerous to her. But when she is inseminated by a man, this crystallizes the magic, and she can expel it from her body in the form of valuable magic stones. She's always quite wealthy, because these stones sell for a lot of money. Elinalise herself, however, doesn't know where the curse came from, because she doesn't remember anything that happened before she was cursed. She was found encased in crystal by the armoured dragon god Perugius. That's the guy who lives in that awesome sky castle, if you're anime only. And this was around 200 years before the time we first see her, and she has no memories of anything before that. We learn about this because it becomes relevant when another character is found trapped in crystal in a labyrinth, and this has changed them in different but comparable ways to Elinalise, though I don't really need to spoil that plotline to talk about the Elinalise stuff. If you've read it, you'll know who I mean. After being found by Perugius, Elinalise was taken in by an elf village, where she got married, and her husband would go and sell the stones she produced. However, one day he was killed while out doing this. Within a few days of his death, so after a few days without sex, Elinalise's curse took over, and she basically started pouncing on any man who would take her. This led to the women in the village hating her, and Elinalise was cast out. In the time after that, she did various things, including working as a lady of the night. Obviously she didn't need the money, but it was a convenient way to keep the curse at bay. Eventually she ended up as a member of Paul's party, up until it disbanded when Paul and Zenith got married. She doesn't like Paul, which, as I said, I have covered in a video already, so won't go into here, but she clearly feels some loyalty towards him, as she immediately joined the search for his family, unbeknownst to him. Later in the main story, we see that despite claiming to Roxy that she doesn't mind about the curse, because she loves sex and would be doing what she's doing anyway, Elinalise is just putting on a brave face, because she immediately falls in love with a man named Cliff when he promises to find a cure for her. She marries him and they have a child together, and while he invents a device, well, actually it's a pair of enchanted panties that keeps her curse at bay, he hasn't found a cure by the end of the Mushoku Tensei series. This is probably because he doesn't really know the origins of her curse or how it works. However, in the Old Dragon's Tale side story, we do find out what the most likely cause of her curse is, and that actually, the curse could serve a very important purpose in the future. See, while Elinalise doesn't know anything about her life prior to 200 years ago, we probably do. Old Dragon's Tale is basically part of the life story of Laplace, an important figure in Mushoku Tensei's lore who doesn't actually appear in the main story because he's been sealed, for reasons I don't need to spoil to explain the Elinalise stuff, and who is expected to reincarnate about 50 years after the end of the main story of Rudius. He was originally a half demon race, half dragon race child who was taken in and raised by the dragon god, back when there were 6 separate worlds, and he was a dragon general, close to his adopted father the dragon god, when 5 of the worlds were destroyed, due to the interference of someone calling himself the human god, who is the mysterious white guy with the pixelated face, who has appeared to Rudius in dreams sometimes, even in the anime. When these worlds, which were the Beastmen world, the Demon Race world, the Heaven Race world, the Ocean world, and finally the Dragon Race world, were destroyed, the remaining people of these worlds were brought over to what was then the human world, which is the world Mushoku Tensei takes place in. Laplace, along with Perugius, who was the son of 2 of the dragon generals who died in the dragon world, ended up in the human world, as did the ancestors of all the non-human races we see in the story. The dragon god's newborn son, however, was sent using magic to the future of the human world, and this was done as the last act of the dragon god as the dragon world was ending. His name is Orsted, and he is one of the most important characters in Mushoku Tensei in terms of Rudius, as well as in terms of the future of the setting. His goal is to kill the one claiming to be the human god, or Hitogami as he's called in Japanese and in fan translations of the web novel. Now, the story of all of this in Old Dragon's Tale is framed as being Laplace, who is now living in hiding high on a mountain where nobody goes because it's crawling with dangerous dragons, telling his life story to a girl who has become his assistant. He found her after she'd been cast out of her village because she had dangerous overactive magic, and that harmed people in the village, leading to them sending her into exile. She would have died out on her own if he hadn't taken her in. She is an elf girl named Rostelina. Rostelina is devoted to Laplace and wants to be useful to him. She helps him take care of the tame dragon he came over with from the dragon world, and she cooks and just generally looks after him. As he tells her this story, little by little over hundreds of years, where both of them are from very long-lived races and don't consider a century a long time, she wants to help him more, and she gets the impression he will soon leave to go and fight in an important battle. So Rostelina asks if there's anything she can do that will help. Laplace has been putting into place all kinds of preparations that will help Orsted in the future to defeat Hitogami, and he knows that Orsted will have a particular issue, which, as we see in the main Mushoku Tensei story, he does indeed have. He has incredibly slow mana regeneration, and so if he uses up mana in a fight, it can be decades before he can replenish it. This is really the only thing stopping Orsted from being ridiculously off-the-charts OP. And so, when Rostelina presses the issue, insisting that she will do anything to help Laplace, he says that he can modify her body so that the excess magic she produces can be basically stored and used by someone else instead. She can essentially become a producer of batteries that Orsted could make use of to make up for his slow mana regeneration. He tells her the process will take a long time and will affect her mind, but that he can do stuff to stop her memory loss becoming permanent. At the end of this story, Rostalina is in a special kind of incubator, with Laplace tending to her. We know that later a lot of stuff happens to Laplace that would prevent him from continuing to take care of Rostalina, and given this story takes place thousands of years before the main Mushoku Tensei story, Rostalina would certainly have been affected by the memory loss, as well as perhaps the process to modify her body to become a mana stone factory for Orsted not really being completed as Laplace initially intended. It's not confirmed anywhere in the stories themselves that Rostalina and Elinalise are the same person, though I can't say whether the author has commented on this anywhere, but it certainly seems that they are. And this means that the curse Elinalise has been living with, and her ability to basically give birth to magic crystals, are the result of Laplace trying to turn her into a source of power for Orsted. Now, she never learns of this in Mushoku Tensei, and while she and her husband Cliff come to know Orsted, with Cliff even working with him on his research into curses, where he's also trying to help Orsted with his own curse of everybody around him hating or fearing him, the possibility of Elinalise's curse being used in this way has not come up. But given Elinalise is a long-lived character, and so will still presumably be around for Orsted's campaign against Hitogami, which we can assume will be a main focus of the sequel series, it seems very likely that her original intention will come into play in the future. Cliff's research may well play a part in that. It is worth noting that while Old Dragon's Tale is a prequel, it was written after the main Mushoku Tensei web novel, and so I do think the stuff about Rostalina was included to tip us off to Elinalise's origins and her potential to play an important role in the future, as otherwise the story of Laplace could easily have been written without the framing device of the story being told to the young elf girl. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments what you think about Elinalise's potential original purpose and any theories you have about how she'll be involved in the future. As always, thank you to my supporters on Patreon, and once again, thank you to everybody who watches my videos, talks to me in the comments, and of course to everyone who helps me out by subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon.